Before the show, we decided to do our usual and pick a random Doctor Who episode to review, and the randomizer left us with Listen, which is episode 4 of Series 8, broadcast on the 13th of September 2014, written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Douglas McKinnon, and all centres around the Doctor's search for the idea that what if there was a creature that had perfected the ability to hide from anything and everyone. So
yeah, it's brilliant. I think it's one of his stronger episodes, one of Capaldi's strongest episodes last season. It's the first one that year that felt this is Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's my favourite of Series 8, which isn't a massive load of praise considering that Series 8 is not one of my favourite series, but this is one that I didn't go that much on when I first watched it. It's only in recent years I really appreciated it. I love the tension that runs throughout the whole episode because we never actually see what the Doctor is looking for because it's, perfected hiding everything.
Yeah.
So,
you get that little snippet when they're in Danny's childhood room
and there's
that creature in the background, but you only see it for a second and you can't, we tried to pause it.
You can't even pause it.
You can't pause it.
It just, the blanket falls off, but it looks like almost like it doesn't really fit the size of the blanket and everything. It's all out of focus and blurry and everything, and it really works. It's really creepy. I think it's probably it's the creepiest moment of Doctor Who for me, because I'm not that bothered. I'm not saying not that bothered, and I don't like them. I do, but like the Weeping Angels and everything, that's very jump scares. But this is more plays on you. I've always said that I find things more scary when they play on your mind rather than just bah.
Yeah, bah.
Yeah, sorry, headphones user. But yeah, no. So we'll start with the Doctor and Clara.
Yeah, that's the only negative really I have on this episode is how the Doctor treats Clara. But then you see that all the way through the run. You see it less in Series 9 because he really does care for her in Series 9, and he's a lot more attentive and caring to an extent.
Yeah.
But Series 8 is just very much shoot her down and abuse her any which way.
Yeah, it's the little sort of like the, oh, you've got big eyes, oh, you've got a massive face and everything, and it's like, really? And I don't like the whole, I know some people really find it really funny and everything, where he's like, why do you need 3 mirrors? Why don't you just turn your head? I don't. Yeah. That stuff doesn't really, it just makes him look stupid. It just makes him look like he's alright, he might not be a human that puts on makeup and everything and has like a triple mirror type thing, but he's not stupid. He would know why people would have that. And he's talking about, like, in this episode, oh, you've taken your makeup off now and everything, even though I think it's the next episode where he's like, why is your face all coloured in and everything? It's just it's stupid. That's the stuff that doesn't work for me in terms of them. But I think Capaldi is, I like when he's being a bit more scientific and curious, and he's a little bit less sort of downbeat all the time, because I don't really like when they're doing Dark Doctor means like nasty Doctor. I don't mind the sort of more dark and mysterious stuff here, and he's playing it. He's having a lot of fun in this episode, I think you can tell. And I really like how he is comforting the young Danny or Rupert, which is
It's a lorry.
It's not even any trains running at this point. Like, it's ridiculous. He's giving the whole like, scared is a superpower and everything. It's just so inconsistent. Yeah, there's no reason for him to not be that warm when he's dealing with Courtney and the kids in the Forest of Night, where he's quite abrasive, and he's like, go. That girl knocks on the TARDIS and everything. He's like, oh, help, I'm lost. And he's like, oh, it's that way. Like, well, that's not the Doctor, is it? Like, that's not the Doctor that we know. That like Capaldi, like. And people always say, oh, he's a lot warmer later on, but he's quite warm in this one. Like I said, Rupert, I know he's obviously trying to reassure him and everything, but like that's just how the Doctor should be. When he's dealing with scared children and everything, not telling them to go away. I just, it's the inconsistencies for me in the Capaldi era that really do my head in.
Yeah.
But I think in this he's great. I love the fact that this whole episode is just based around like a scientific curiosity.
Yeah, and it's a great monologue from him before the opening credits.
It's a great pre-title sequence.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Cold open.
Cold open.
Yeah. Really good cold open, where he's just monologuing to himself, answering his own questions, saying how evolution perfects survival skills. So the perfect defense mechanism, the perfect attack, but what if there was something that was made to be perfect at hiding, but you can't know, because if it's perfect at hiding, you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
And the whole premise of this one is he gets onto it a bit later on, saying, like, what if everyone has the same nightmare? And it's that old nightmare of there's something under my bed.
Yeah, grabbing your phone. Have you ever had that nightmare?
Yeah.
Something
when
grabbing?
I was a kid, yeah.
It turns out it was me. No, I'm joking.
I'd have invited you for a drink if it was.
What, as a child? How very
maybe not.
Bridgend of you. We've all had those sort of weird dreams that there's something in the bed or something in the cupboard and everything, you know. So I think it's playing on that. It's that very typical Moffat thing of going, well, here's this sort of like everyday thing, but I'm now going to make it like 10 times scarier, you know, like he's done with statues and, you know, shadows and everything, you know. It's very, and I like this because Moffat commissioned himself to do this one because he wanted to do one that wasn't like an arc heavy sort of, because by this point, for the last couple of years, all he'd done had been like the season openers and the season closers and like the sort of ones that end and begin and like the split halves of the series or specials and things. I think he just wanted to go, right, I just want to do an episode in the middle of the series. And I think Moffat is so much stronger as a writer when he's not, you know, like constricted by the arc heavy stuff. When he's just got a Doctor Who idea and for a Doctor Who story and he just tells it. Those are his strongest episodes for me. You know, when he just does, all right, yeah, he's done like, you know, obviously some of his specials have been very good as well, but for me, he's at his best when he's just taking a simple idea and a simple theory and just running with it in terms of an episode.
Yeah.
You know, where he's going, so what if I did a Doctor Who story about the idea of, you know, talking, why we talk to ourselves when we're alone and things, you know, and nightmares. And it's very good and it's a very creepy episode. Like, not the way Douglas MacKinnon directs it is really good. That's that sort of tension right the way throughout the episode. It's broken up into, you know, there are chunks of humour and stuff that don't really quite work for me, but I don't think Moffat's particularly a funny writer. No. For me, anyway. I mean, you know, it's all subjective and everything, you know, but for me, it's just not really. But I think the tension and the way it builds to... You constantly feel like you're going to get a reveal of what this creature is. You know, especially later on in the episode, we think, oh, we're finally going to get it now, and it just still doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think that works.
I love the episodes where you don't actually see the villain.
Yeah.
I mean, I know... You don't really see the Vashta Nerada in the Silence of the Libraries, and
no, exactly.
that two-parter. You only see them take over the bodies of the archaeological dig crew thing. That's the only visual thing you know they're there.
Yeah.
In terms of a like actual physical monster, but it works better when it's just like playing on those little irrational fears you have growing up as a child of something lurking in the shadows, something under your bed in your closet, something behind you when you're walking around.
Yeah.
That cold breeze across the back of your neck makes your hair stand up. Just those little irrational fears that they play on, and they've done such a good job.
It really does work. I think, you know, in a context like this, I mean, you could take the idea for this and turn it into a horror film easily. Yeah. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Doctor Who, and I'm glad it is, because it's, you know, it's another example of Doctor Who just smashing out like in terms of broadcast. Like last week we had the sort of comedic, fantastical Robin Hood one, and then we get like this quite psychological horror, and then we go into like a bank heist next week. You know, that's why I just love the show. But what were we on about? Doctor and Clara. Yeah, so Capaldi's good. Jenna Coleman, I'm not that fussed on Clara.
No, by this point you feel she should have gone at the end of 7B.
Yeah, or if they're going to come back and reintroduce another new Clara or something.
This is 7B was the perfect goodbye, really, for her character. I would say it would have been nicer to have a fresh character for this one. Yeah,
I'd have loved to have had 3 series of 12 and Bill. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, I wanted more of Series 10.
Yeah.
It's a weird dynamic, this series, between the Doctor and Clara.
Yeah, I just think there's the whole, like, you know, they spend 90% of their time just lying to each other about different things. You know, the whole thing that the Doctor's got this, you know, idea and he wants Clara to come along, and she's, you know, not really giving him anything in terms of, what's the word?
Excitement, or...
No, like, just she's not going, I was on a date with that. He says, I was on a date, it was terrible. The date stuff with Clara and Danny feels authentic to their characters, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is a good thing in terms of the characterization and stuff, but I don't really like Clara or Danny or Clara and Danny together. You know, I just think that...
No, but it's helping to set up for the series finale at this point, whilst having a kind of solo episode. It's mixed in two. It works well.
It's a solo episode. You could watch it without needing to watch the rest of it. It just sets up the sort of character beats for the finale and things like that. Yeah. You know, it's a big step in Clara and Danny's relationship, obviously. The awkwardness of the date feels very authentic. You know, it's very like, it's quite cringy at times as well when they're both saying the wrong thing and everything. And, you know, I think...
It's something we can all relate to on that one, really.
Yeah, the thing I don't get though, obviously, because the Doctor picks Clara up after this disastrous date and is like, "Oh, come and eat," and she flies a TARDIS with the telepathic circuits, which is really cool. I like that sort of organic panel of the console.
Yeah.
That's very.
It's a nice. It's something fresh and new as well.
Yeah, and I like I've said before, I love that TARDIS. Anyway, it's my favourite of the modern era, possibly my favourite overall. But I find it really strange that Clara goes on the date with Danny, accidentally goes back in time to meet Danny as a young lad. And then essentially grooms him.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, groom's a bit strong, but she's there and she's putting this whole military thing on them with this toy soldiers and everything, and Dan the soldier man and all that. And then immediately after that, she goes back on the date with him as an adult, and I just found that it's a very Clara thing to do, isn't it? Yeah. And then she cocks it up again anyway.
And it feeds back into that awkward first date thing. So she's gone back thinking, "Oh, I want to fix this." Goes back in time
and makes it worse.
Uses a name that he knows that her and the other people at the school don't actually know, and then makes it worse. Then he walks out.
Yeah.
And then my main part with that whole sequence is, why the hell was no one thinking or saying anything about the spaceman in the blooming restaurant?
I've been to that restaurant. It's not out of the blue.
Okay. But you're there having a nice meal, and then all of a sudden some guy in astronaut gears just walked out.
Yeah.
Bright orange astronaut gears. It's not like he's not going to stand out.
Yeah. I think when we meet like the descendants of Danny in some, because obviously we both know what happens to Danny and Clara, so we know it's not their direct descendants, but it's I think Moffat stated that it was most likely to be one of sort of Danny's siblings' kids or something. But I think Sam Anderson does a great job doing the double role, because Danny's quite sort of, Danny and Orson feel very different. You don't feel like you're just watching someone going, "I am the descendant of." So they do feel like different characters. I think he's much better as Orson as well. I much prefer Orson as a character to Danny, because I never really got on with Danny. I'll be honest.
I feel Orson kind of gels with the audience that bit quicker.
Yeah,
because you see he's going through, like, you get the background story of him. It's a very brief backstory to it. He's been away from home for 6 months.
He's an experimental time travel pioneer or something, and he's like sort of overshot right into like the far future and like the end of the universe, kind of like utopia. And he's hellbent time.
He's been left on his own there for 6 months, and he's kept the door locked, which the Doctor points out, thinking, if you're at the end of the world and there's nothing else out there, why have you locked the door?
Which is another really quick, creepy bit, which I really liked. And then
you're having a bit of fun. It's a bit light-hearted, because they're having a bit of a chat, and they point out that Orson's lying to the other two last people in the universe, after having a nice little. It almost seems like a bit of a bantery back and forth type feel, and then it just switches straight back to that. Yeah, we still have this threat.
Yeah, it's not like an episode, say, when Midnight, where it's pretty much like the tension happens and then it just stays really tense the entire time. There are sort of those nice little reprises of, we can have a bit of a joke around and everything, but I think that makes it almost more effective, really, when things start to go weird again.
Yeah.
When the Doctor and Clara sat there and, who are you on a date with? Are you doing conversation and everything? And then all of a sudden it's that sort of the knocking and the screeches noises, that you don't know. Is it just the depressurizing and stuff, or is it something else? Is there something else out there and all that?
Yeah, and it kind of feels like the characters themselves are relatively scared as well, because they're coming out with these justifications for the noises they're hearing. It's the whole is the whole cooling down, and stuff like that. The systems are setting onto low power mode for the night. They're just trying to justify it just to make them feel less scared.
Yeah, and I love that thing where he's written, to keep the door locked and everything, and even though he's the only person there and everything, he still has to be reminded to keep that door shut because there's something not quite right. And like I said, I think this episode just uses like tension and atmosphere really well.
Yeah.
I think it would have been so much more effective had we watched this like sort of in the evening when it's dark and everything. I mean, we watched it now at like sort of 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a very lovely bank holiday. It's actually really nice out there today.
It is beautiful, yeah. I regret wearing trackies.
Yeah, well, that's your own fault.
Yeah, I am very warm. I'm glad we're not in your room. There's a sauna in there, bro.
Being a bit sus. I think, like I said, overall, very strong episode. For me, I think it's one of those. I can't think of any other episode that has gone from so not low, but it wasn't really anything I thought. But I think at the time I really wasn't connecting with this series at all. So
no, because
every Saturday I'd be like,
it was a bit of a shake. Like Deep Breath was an okay start. It's Capaldi. It's Capaldi. They need that first few episodes to really get their feel for the role.
Yeah, but Capaldi at that time is the only Doctor that's taken me more than one episode to warm to. Like Eccleston, Tennant, and Smith all hit it by the end of their first one for me.
Yeah.
Whereas Capaldi, I'm even when I was watching this the first time, this episode, I was still like, yeah, I like bits of it, but it's just so inconsistent and all over the place. It's not even like we can say, all right, it's his fourth episode. Like, but in terms of the story, this Doctor's quite established by now because Clara's even asking questions like, how long have you been, knocking about on your own when I've been off doing other things. This isn't like a newly regenerated Doctor. This is this Doctor. It's just the inconsistent characterization of it through the whole, and I just don't get on with Series 8. But this episode really has gone up. I think especially watching it on its own, it makes me think this is how good this series could be. You can have a slightly sort of darker Doctor in terms of you can do sort of more darker stories and psychological stuff and everything.
Just not angry Doctor.
Yeah, but I don't think dark Doctor doesn't necessarily mean go away, kid, I don't care. Look at me, I'm dark and edgy. It's that's very surface level. That's like very Torchwood level of darkness, being just edgy for the sake of it. But I think this episode, like I said, I think the standouts for me are Capaldi. He's great in this. The direction. There's the standout scene is the whole thing in the children's home with the Don't Look Around and the Doctor sort of having to beg Danny and Clara to not turn around and look at whatever it is that's under the shit. But they also throw in the suggestion that it could just be one of the kids under there. But we know as the audience, as we see that sheet drop just for that second, we know that is not like just some other kid playing a joke. Yeah. And there's even when it runs out the door, there's that little flash, almost like a teleport or something. You think, what on earth is that? But to them, they could be thinking, well, it could just be one of the kids. You never know. And
it's that scene when Clara and Danny are under the bed, and then all of a sudden you see that pressure come down. Yeah. And it's just, and they're like, did anyone else come in the room? And they're like, no. And Danny's like, no one else is in here. It's just us. And then Clara just gets up and there's just something sat in the middle of the bed with the blanket on. Yeah. And that was brilliant.
I do have to sort of nitpick that and go, well, if it's trying to hide, why would it sit on the bed where it knows two people underneath and just go, no one can see me. No one can see me. I'm fine.
I'm glad he didn't do that with Child Doctor at the end, though.
Yeah, that was what I was going to bring on to next. What are your thoughts on that whole... Because that was the thing that at the time really irked me. Like, I didn't get on with it at all. I was like, why are we seeing this? This is nonsense. We don't need this.
It's interesting. It plays into that fear that maybe, like, Clara says to the Doctor, this is just a dream, and clever people can hear dreams and stuff.
It's a nicely written speech.
Yeah, it's a really nicely written speech, and I think maybe that stayed with the Doctor for it, so he doesn't actually remember it definitely happened. He just remembers it as a dream, so that's why we get this. I think it ties in nicely with everything, and it gives a bit more understanding to why his infatuation with these creatures that live to hide.
Yeah, and I think, it ties in, I suppose, nicely, having it be the same barn and everything, but again, it's the whole thing of Clara going, no, don't look, I'm not going to tell you, but don't look where we are, because our relationship is incredibly toxic and we're not going to talk to each other about things, and, I just think that it just, that side of it really just doesn't sit well with me.
That was the bit I did have a problem with. Like, the actual scene itself with the speech was great, it's just that bit where she's like, yeah, don't look, just promise me you'll never look, do as you're told. Yeah. It's just like he's the Doctor, like...
I think even if they'd have written around that in the sense that the Doctor's still unconscious at that point and she just, takes off or whatever, she just pulls the lever up and then he wakes up and is like, where were you? Oh, we just left where we picked up Orson and everything, and even that I could get behind, but it's the fact that she's openly going, we have moved, but I'm not going to tell you where. Yeah. It's just, it really... I mean, I suppose it works in building that sort of toxic relationship the two of them have, because that's the downfall of 12 and Clara, is the fact that they are just so bad for each other. Yeah. But yeah, I think overall, solid episode. Pleasantly surprised, considering the drivel that surrounds it in that series, because there's only really that and...
The last two-parter.
No, I hate that. I really hate that finale. I genuinely... everything about that finale irritates me.
It takes away from the Cybermen massively.
That is the least of the issues I have with that finale, let me tell you. But yeah, sure, we'll go with that. No, there's that and the two Jamie Matheson ones, Mummy on the Orient Express. Yeah. Especially that one. And then Flatline is alright. The rest of that series is like... Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some of it, I don't. I mean, I passionately hate the finale. Most of it is just like sort of service level stuff. Where I'm like, I don't really care.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care for it.
Flatline really just serves for Riggsy in the Series 9 finales.
Well, no, I mean, like, I think it's a solid enough story. And it does something a bit different, but yeah, Mummy on the Orient Express, I like, and this, which is 3 out of 12.
I mean, I enjoyed Deep Breath once everything started to happen. It just took so long.
For me, Deep Breath is just too long.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be. It's the same length as Day of the Doctor. Like, there's not enough story in it to justify that length. There's so much padding in there.
Yeah, you can tell.
I would quite like to see a version of Deep Breath where it just trims the fat and cuts it down to like a 45. Like, you could trim half an hour off that easily.
Yeah, because you're just coming
back into like a 45-minute slot.
You're coming off 2 pretty much feature-length film episodes of Doctor Who with Day of the Doctor and Time of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And then you're jumping straight into this, and it's well over an hour long.
I can see why they did it in terms of like the production side of things going, well, we just had a very big success putting Doctor Who in the cinema for the 50th, Why didn't we do like another one and do it? Because I saw Deep Breath in the cinema. I don't know if you did.
No, I didn't. I did see Day of the Doctor. I love that.
Yeah, and I think it was like fun experience to go to watch the start of a new series in the cinema, but it was just the episode itself it's just too long. Anyway, we've gone way off topic again.
Yeah, we do this.
Maybe we could do a Capaldi
review.
Yeah, maybe a tier list or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that in a couple of weeks. So
yeah,
I don't even know what we're doing next. We're doing a podcast again next week, aren't we?
Yes.
Live podcast, which we enjoy doing. Hope you guys did as well. Please let us know what you think of Listen. If you agree with anything, if you disagree, if you've got anything else to say, if there's any episodes you would want us to take a look at, because like I said, we just hit the randomizer and just do whatever comes up. I did bring up the Daleks master plan. I will admit,
we can't
which
do
we
that.
can't just do in an afternoon. You can't, because we obviously sit down and watch it first and then go into the review. It's not as easy to do that with the Daleks master plan for obvious reasons.
It's long and it's a pain in the ass getting hold of it.
Yes, it's 12 episodes long and 3/4 of it don't exist.
Yeah.
So, but if there's a specific story or anything classic or new, we're not bothered. Let us know, and we could always do it. Next week we're going to be live again at 5:00. So,
yes,
yeah.
Have a lovely evening wherever you are. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because it really means a lot to us.
It do indeed.
And have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Bye.